let's get real. Most people are too afraid to tell you to your face that they don't like you. Instead, they hide behind fake smiles, hollow compliments, and forced politeness. I've been there too, thinking someone was a friend, only to find out they were secretly hoping for my downfall. It's brutal, but here's the truth. If you don't recognize the signs, you'll end up wasting your time and energy on people who, deep down, can't stand you. So, let's cut through the BS and talk about the signs that someone dislikes you, but is hiding it. You might not like what you hear, but it's better to face the truth than live in denial. Number 1. They're always joking about your flaws. We all know that one person who loves to joke, especially when the joke is on you. They'll pick at your quirks, your mistakes, your little imperfections, and they do it with a smile saying, "I'm just messing with you." It seems harmless at first, but let's not kid ourselves. These jokes are often more than just playful banter. They're calculated digs, cleverly disguised as humor, meant to chip away at your self-esteem bit by bit. I remember a time when I was close to someone who seemed to always have something to say about me. How I dressed, the way I spoke, even the projects I was working on. At first, I laughed it off, thinking it was all in good fun. But as time went on, I noticed a pattern. The jokes were always aimed at my perceived weaknesses, never at my strengths. It wasn't long before I started second-guessing myself, wondering if maybe I was the problem, if maybe these flaws were as glaring as they made them out to be. Here's where the controversy kicks in. People who consistently joke about your flaws aren't doing it out of affection. They're testing the waters to see how much disrespect you'll take. It's a subtle form of manipulation, a way for them to assert dominance while keeping you in your place. They're telling you in no uncertain terms that you're beneath them. And the most insidious part? They get away with it because we've been conditioned to believe that if we can't take a joke, we're the ones with the problem. But let's flip that script. I'm here to tell you that there's nothing wrong with standing up for yourself when a joke crosses the line. In fact, it's essential. You deserve to be around people who lift you up, not those who knock you down just to get a cheap laugh. True friends don't need to point out your flaws to feel better about themselves. They celebrate your strengths and help you work through your weaknesses without making you the butt of the joke. I've seen it happen time and again. People who let these kinds of jokes slide, thinking it's easier to keep the peace than to make waves. But here's the deep truth. Allowing others to disrespect you, even in jest, is a slippery slope. It starts with small comments, but over time, those jokes can wear you down, making you question your worth. And the more you allow it, the more they'll push until you're left doubting yourself. All because you didn't want to seem too sensitive. I had to learn this the hard way. I realized that by laughing along, I was giving them permission to keep going. I was complicit in my own disrespect. It wasn't until I started pushing back, setting boundaries, that I noticed a shift, not just in how they treated me, but in how I saw myself. I stopped letting their words define me and started owning my narrative. So here's my advice. The next time someone makes a joke at your expense, don't just laugh it off. Ask yourself, is this really funny, or is there something more going on here? And if the answer is the latter, don't be afraid to call them out. It might be uncomfortable. It might even end the friendship. But your self-respect is worth far more than someone's misguided sense of humor. In the end, life's too short to surround yourself with people who can't see your value. If their idea of friendship is constantly pointing out your flaws, then it's time to find new friends. The ones who truly care about you will never need to put you down to feel good about themselves. So stand tall, speak up, and don't let anyone reduce you to a punchline. Number 2, they give compliments that sting like insults. We've all been there. Someone gives you a compliment, but instead of feeling good, you're left with a bitter aftertaste, like you've just been slapped with a velvet glove. It's the kind of compliment that makes you pause and think, wait, was that a compliment or an insult? And here's the harsh reality. Often, it's a bit of both. These backhanded compliments are a subtle, almost sneaky way for people to undermine you while pretending to be kind. I remember a time when I was working on a big project that I was incredibly proud of. After putting in countless hours of hard work, I finally shared it with a group of colleagues. One of them, someone I thought was a supporter, said with a smile, "Wow, this is actually pretty good for someone like you." I stood there, stunned. On the surface, it seemed like a compliment, but those last few words, "for someone like you," hit me like a ton of bricks. What did that even mean? Was I not supposed to be capable of doing good work? And that's the controversy here. These so-called compliments are laced with a hidden agenda. They're not meant to uplift you. They're designed to keep you in your place. It's a power play, a way for the person giving the compliment to assert their superiority while making you doubt your own abilities. They're saying, "I see you trying, but you'll never be as good as me." It's toxic, but it's wrapped up in such a pretty package that you almost miss the poison inside. Let's be real. People who give backhanded compliments are often insecure themselves. They see your potential, your strengths, and it scares them. So, they use these sly little digs to keep you second-guessing yourself to make sure you don't rise too high. It's like they're patting you on the back while holding you down with the other hand. And here's where it gets even more controversial. We've all done it at some point. Maybe not intentionally, but we've all let our insecurities slip out in the form of a compliment that's meant to remind someone else of their place. But here's the deep message. You don't have to accept this disguised hostility. You have the power to reject it, to see it for what it really is, a reflection of their own insecurities, not a measure of your worth. When someone says, "You're smarter than you look," or "This is good," considering you're new at this, you don't have to swallow it whole. Call it out for what it is, even if it makes things awkward, because if you don't, you're allowing them to dictate how you see yourself. And that's a power you should never hand over to anyone. I've learned to recognize these compliments for what they are, a mirror reflecting someone else's insecurities. And when you see it that way, it loses its sting. Instead of internalizing it, you can almost laugh it off. Because at the end of the day, their words say more about them than they ever will about you. So here's what I do now. When I receive a backhanded compliment, I don't let it slide. I'll respond with something like, "Thanks, but what do you mean by that?" It forces them to confront the insult hidden in their words, and more often than not, it puts them on the spot. They're suddenly aware that you're not playing their game, and it's amazing how quickly their tune changes. The takeaway: don't let anyone's veiled negativity define you. Whether it's a well-meaning friend, a jealous colleague, or even a family member, remember this: your worth isn't up for debate. Compliments should lift you up, not tear you down. If someone's words leave you questioning yourself, it's time to question their intentions instead. Life is too short to waste on people who can't genuinely celebrate your successes. Surround yourself with those who see your value and aren't afraid to let you know it without any strings attached. Number 3, they subtly exclude you from plans. It's the little things that sting the most, like realizing that your so-called friends accidentally forgot to invite you to that dinner, that party, or that weekend getaway. They'll swear it was an oversight, that it was a last-minute thing, or worse, they'll assume you were too busy anyway. But let's be real, these aren't accidents. This is social exclusion in its sneakiest form, and it's a clear sign that you're not as valued as you think. I've been on the receiving end of this too many times. I remember checking my phone one weekend and seeing pictures of a group of friends having a great time at an event I would have loved to attend. The kicker? Not a single person mentioned it to me beforehand. When I casually brought it up later, they were full of excuses. "Oh, we thought you were busy," or "it was such a last-minute plan." But deep down, I knew the truth. If they wanted me there, they would have made sure I knew about it. And here's where the controversy comes in. This kind of exclusion isn't just thoughtlessness, it's deliberate. It's a way of sending a message without saying a word. They don't want you there, but they don't have the guts to tell you to your face. Instead, they hope you'll just fade out of the group quietly without causing a scene. It's passive-aggressive and it's cowardly, but it's also incredibly common. People don't talk about this much because it's easier to pretend it's not happening. It's easier to swallow the excuses, to convince yourself that it really was just a mistake, rather than face the painful truth that you're being pushed out. But here's the thing, if you keep accepting those excuses, you're giving them permission to keep excluding you. You're letting them decide your place in their lives rather than taking control of your own narrative. I had to learn this the hard way. For a while I kept quiet, letting those accidental exclusions slide, hoping that maybe next time I'd be included. But then I realized that by staying silent, I was allowing myself to be treated as an afterthought. So, I did something controversial. I started calling them out on it. I'd say, "Hey, I saw you guys went out last weekend. Why didn't anyone invite me?" It wasn't easy, and it definitely made things awkward, but it also forced them to confront their behavior. And guess what? The dynamics changed. Some people got defensive, others tried to make up for it, but the bottom line was clear. I wasn't going to let them exclude me without a fight. Here's the deep message. If people want you in their lives, they'll make the effort to include you, no matter how last minute the plan is. And if they don't, then it's time to rethink the value of those relationships. You deserve to be around people who don't make you feel like you're constantly chasing after their approval or their attention. True friends don't forget to invite you. They make sure you're there because they genuinely enjoy your company. So, if you find yourself being subtly excluded from plans, don't just brush it off. Confront it, ask the hard questions, and be prepared for the answers, even if they're not what you want to hear. Because at the end of the day, it's better to know where you truly stand than to be left wondering why you were left out again. And remember, you're not a backup option, you're a priority. Surround yourself with people who treat you like one. Number 4. They're busy only when it comes to you. There's a particular kind of hurt that doesn't scream. It doesn't slam a door or send a dramatic goodbye text. It just slowly pulls away, quietly, repeatedly, predictably. And it always hides behind one phrase. "Sorry, I've just been really busy." At first, you believe it, because life does get busy. Work piles up, deadlines close in, people get overwhelmed. You don't want to be that personae, one who demands attention when someone else is struggling. So, you give them grace. You back off, you stay understanding. But as time passes, something starts to feel off. You realize they're busy, but only with you. They have time for everyone else. They're out for dinner, posting stories, laughing with friends, engaging with others. Their phone clearly works. Their time exists. Their energy is active, just not for you. That's when the shift begins, not in them, but in you. You start shrinking your expectations. You stop reaching out as often, not because you're okay with the distance, but because you're embarrassed to keep being the one who tries. You start saying things like, "I get it, they're just swamped right now," but deep down, you know, they're not too busy for everyone. They're too busy for you. And that's the truth most people refuse to look at. You see, when someone wants you in their life, they create space. Not because they have nothing else to do, but because value dictates priority. You can't be both important to someone and consistently optional. It doesn't work like that. And the worst part? They might still throw you breadcrumbs. A like here, a "How have you been?" message after 2 weeks. Just enough to keep you from walking away, but never enough to feel like you're truly wanted. That's not care. That's emotional maintenance, keeping you on the hook without ever truly holding you. From a Stoic lens, this is where self-respect enters. The Stoics didn't chase comfort. They didn't demand attention. They observed. They adapted. They asked one central question: is this relationship aligned with my values? If someone consistently shows you that they are unavailable for you, but not for the rest of the world, that's not a sign to try harder. It's a sign to step back without resentment. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove how loyal or kind or patient you are, because the people meant for you will never make you beg for a moment of their time. And here's the inner conflict. You might still love them. You might still care, but love without respect is just attachment, and care without reciprocation is just self-abandonment. So what do? You stop forcing invitations into someone's life who keeps closing the door gently but repeatedly. You reclaim your time, not out of anger, but out of clarity. You don't need revenge. You don't need a big dramatic exit. You just withdraw your access, quietly but fully. Let your silence do what your presence couldn't. Not to hurt them, but to heal you. Because every time you reach out to someone who doesn't prioritize you, you reinforce the story that you're not worthy of full attention. And that story ends now. So the next time they hit you with, "I've just been busy," watch how they respond when you stop chasing, when you stop waiting, when you start showing up in your own life with the same consistency you once gave to them. The right people will notice your absence. The wrong ones will only notice that their convenience just got a little more complicated. And if this moment, the one you're in now, feels like the final straw, let it be. Not as a punishment, but as a pivot. You're not walking away because you're bitter. You're walking away because you're done arguing with what's already obvious. If that resonates, if you're ready to stop chasing part-time effort, type this below: never too busy for myself. Because the moment you realize you don't need to convince anyone of your worth, you free yourself from the people who were only pretending to see it. Number 5. They avoid physical contact like the plague. You ever notice how something as small as a hug suddenly becomes awkward? Not rejected outright, just delayed, dodged. You lean in, they shift. You go for a touch on the arm, and they find something to look at. You sit beside them, and somehow there's always something between you: bags, crossed arms, the subtle creation of distance. It doesn't scream, "I dislike you," but it doesn't feel warm either. What it feels like is avoidance. And when someone starts avoiding physical contact, not once, not twice, but over and over, it's not accidental. It's energetic withdrawal. Their body is speaking a truth their words aren't ready to say. Because here's what most people miss. Touch is the purest form of unspoken connection. You can fake a smile. You can send polite messages. You can keep the conversation light and friendly. But your body? Your body doesn't lie. When someone pulls away from touch, especially if they're used to initiate it or accept it comfortably, what they're communicating is emotional retreat. It's subtle boot. It's real. And no, this isn't about being physically clingy or expecting affection constantly. This is about recognizing when something that was once natural, easy, reciprocal, affectionatino feels like an effort. And when physical contact becomes forced or uncomfortable, it's usually not about the touch itself. It's about what that touch represents: connection, closeness, vulnerability. And if someone is pulling away from all three, their aversion to touch is just the symptom of something deeper. They're not feeling the same way anymore, but they don't want to say it out loud. Maybe they don't want to hurt you. Maybe they're still figuring out their feelings. Maybe they're hoping distance will make you do the walking so they don't have to. But regardless of the reason, the Stoic man doesn't wait around to decode mixed signals. He doesn't play investigator in someone else's emotional maze. He observes what's present. He doesn't chase what's fading. And most importantly, he doesn't beg to be touched by someone who flinches at his presence. Because here's the hard truth. When someone avoids physical connection, what they're really doing is creating emotional insulation. It's their way of saying, I'm here, but I'm not open. And that, over time, starts to wear on your confidence. You begin to question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Am I too much? Too needy? Too intense? But this isn't about you crossing a line. It's about them backing away from one they no longer want to maintain. And this is where your inner strength needs to step in. You don't chase closeness. You don't try harder to make them comfortable. You stop touching someone who treats your hand like a burden. Not because you're angry, but because your presence deserves to be received, not endured. Physical affection is not a transaction, it's an invitation. If it's declined repeatedly, the invitation gets rescinded. And that doesn't make you bitter, it makes you aware. You start to read not just their words, but their posture. Not just their tone, but their tension. And when you see their energy closing, you stop trying to force it open. Stoicism teaches us to detach from outcomes without detaching from reality. You don't get offended. You don't take it personally. But you do take it seriously. You respect their space by stepping away not to punish them, but to protect your peace. Because physical distance, repeated consistently, is communication. And just because it's silent doesn't mean it's not clear. So if the hugs stopped, if the hands don't reach back, if the leaning in becomes leaning away, don't explain it away anymore. See it, feel it, act on it. You don't need a confrontation. You need closure, even if it's the quiet kind. And if this truth landed somewhere honest inside you, type this below. No more reaching. Because once someone treats your touch like discomfort, you stop offering it like reassurance. Number 6. They disappear when you need support. There's a pattern that doesn't show up during the good days. It doesn't reveal itself when you're fun to be around, when everything is light and easy, when all you offer is energy. Not this one waits, quietly. It hides until you're vulnerable, until you hit a rough patch, until life punches you in the gut, and you look around for the people you assumed were in your corner. And suddenly, they're gone. Not obviously, not with a goodbye. They just become distant. They're not checking in. They're not showing up. They're not there when it matters most. That's when it hits you. They weren't really there to begin with, because some people are only drawn to your light, not your depth. They enjoy you when you're entertaining, when you're uplifting, when you're useful. But when you need to lean on theme even just a little, they vanish. And that vanishing act, it's not about them being overwhelmed. It's not because they didn't see your message. It's because being present for someone else requires emotional investment, and they never planned to make one with you. This is the point where a lot of people start to question themselves. You wonder, am I asking for too much? Maybe I should just handle this alone. But here's the truth. You're not asking for anything extraordinary. You're asking for presence. You're asking for reciprocity. You're asking for someone who doesn't just take from your strength, but stands beside you when that strength runs low. Stoicism isn't about needing no one. It's about choosing who deserves your energy and who proves that they can handle it when it's not easy to be around you. A person who disappears when you're in pain isn't neutral. They're choosing self-preservation over connection. And that's their right. But it's also your signal to recalibrate. We spend too much time measuring relationships by how good they feel on sunny days. But true connection isn't built in sunlight. It's revealed in storms. The friend, the partner, the so-called close one, who suddenly forgets how to speak when you're grieving, stressed, lost, or simply low. They're not just absent, they're exposed. Because support isn't always a grand gesture. It's a simple message. It's a presence that says, I don't need to fix it, I just refuse to let you go through it alone. And when someone can't even give you that, you stop giving them the full version of you. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. The Stoics taught us to release attachment to what we can't control. You can't control who shows up when life hits hard, but you can control what you do with that knowledge. You don't chase them. You don't confront them with guilt. You simply redraw the boundary not out of revenge, but out of respect for your own heart. Because the person who vanishes when you're drowning will never be the one who helps you breathe again. And the more you excuse their absence, the more you betray your own need to be held, heard, and valued. So what do? You stop explaining your struggle to people who only listen when it entertains them. You stop sharing your weight with people who drop it the second it feels heavy. You walk quietly, steadily, finally toward the people who don't disappear when you hurt, but instead become even more visible. That's the difference between connection and convenience, between presence and pretending, between loyalty and polite proximity. So if you're tired of realizing who's missing only when life gets hard, type this below. Pain reveals the real. Because when you're down and someone disappears, that's not just bad timing. That's true color. And your job now is to remember it. Number 7. They gossip about you behind your back. You thought they had your back. Maybe you shared something personal with them. Maybe you let them into parts of your life you don't show just anyone. Maybe you trusted them because at some point it felt real, whatever real was supposed to mean. But then it happens, quietly, indirectly. Someone slips, a sentence shows up in the wrong place, a tone shifts, and suddenly you realize your name is being used in rooms you were never invited into. And not with love, not with respect, but with a casual cruelty that only comes from one thing: dislike dressed up as loyalty. This one cuts deep, because it's not about obvious distance. It's not about them ghosting you or ignoring you to your face. No, this one hides behind smiles. This is the friend who still checks in, the colleague who still laughs at your jokes, the sibling who still says, "You know I've always got your back," until they don't. Until you find out they've been laughing at your mistakes instead of supporting your efforts. Until you realize your struggles have become entertainment for them. Until you feel the burn of betrayal, not because they left you, but because they stood beside you and still chose to speak against you. Gossip isn't just idle talk. It's character assassination disguised as small talk. And when someone gossips about you behind your back, it's not about what they said. It's about who they showed you they truly are. Because let's be clear, people only talk down on others behind closed doors when there's a lack of courage to speak honestly face to face. It's easier to perform behind your back than confront you with truth. It's safer to gather laughs at your expense than sit with their own discomfort. And often, the ones who gossip the most, they're not doing it out of hate. They're doing it out of insecurity. They feel small next to your presence, so they shrink you in rooms where you're not there to defend yourself. They don't know how to match your energy, so they choose to fracture your image. Now, a Stoic response doesn't mean pretending it doesn't hurt. It means recognizing pain as information, not a call to chaos. It means you don't seek revenge. You don't start counter-gossiping. You don't try to clear your name in every room that can't hold your truth. You observe. You withdraw access. You let their actions become their own exposure. Because sooner or later, people notice a pattern, and those who gossip to you about others will gossip about you just the same. You don't need to defend yourself in places built on whispers. You defend yourself through presence, through consistency, through the kind of grounded masculinity that doesn't flinch at being misunderstood because it has nothing to hide. And most of all, you learn. You learn that trust isn't just about how someone treats you when you're around. It's about what they say when you're not. That's the real test. Not loyalty under pressure, but loyalty in your absence. So, what do you do now? You stop sharing your plans with people who'll twist them into punchlines. You stop opening up to people who see your vulnerability as leverage. And you remember, your name carries weight. Stop handing it to people who use it like currency in shallow conversations. You'll lose some people in the process. That's good. Because real respect never needs a room full of earshot, just needs one honest silence behind your back. Let them talk. Let the noise rise. But never forget, what they say behind you says everything about them. And if that truth echoed somewhere in you today, type this below: I protect my name. Because from this point forward, it's no longer about who talks. It's about who still deserves the right to be close enough to listen. Now you've seen it. Not the loud signs, not the obvious disrespect, but the quiet erosion, the subtle ways people pull back, flinch, disappear, or speak your name like it's theirs to reshape. The truth is, someone doesn't have to say they dislike you. They just have to keep showing up like they don't respect you. And the Stoic mindset? It doesn't seek revenge. It doesn't ask for closure. It simply sees clearly, then acts without emotion clouding the path. So if this video peeled something open in you, if you recognize behaviors you've been tolerating too long, maybe now is the moment you stop explaining and start deciding. You don't owe anyone more chances to prove they don't value you. You owe yourself peace. If this resonated with you, hit subscribe. Because tomorrow, we're going deeper, no fluff, no filter. See you in tomorrow's video.